Dude, you are getting well. Dude, what's going on? Dude Nation, dudes of all genders. It's so good to have you all here today. We are kicking off season 2 of Dude, You're Getting Well, and it's all thanks to you, my listeners, our listeners, this community. I do this show for you, with you, through you, and by you. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for listening. And if you like what you hear, please share it. Please let me know. Without further ado, I'm very excited for this special guest. Her name is Anat Peri, and she's a transformational coach. She's a founder of Training Camp for the Soul, which I can't wait to hear about. And for over 7 years, she's guided clients through wisdom and the process of mastering the wisdom of their own bodies and emotions to choose a life they desire with ease. So if that's right at home for all you dudes, who are out there trying to live a life you love and dealing with your body and your mind and your feelings. So I hope this is of value to you. Let us know without what lands, and welcome, Anat. So good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you as well, Ben.
Welcome to the show. It's been a long time coming. Thank you for being a very committed and generous and flexible guest.
Yeah, totally. Always
We're
perfect
excited
timing.
to make this work. I ran into Anat when I was finishing a retreat recently. Some of you know I do this annual retreat in Costa Rica, and one year we decided to do it in San Diego. And the last day we were all celebrating in this voice out in San Diego in the middle of this giant park there at this loud restaurant full of tourists and chaos, like Ben Curtis. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm even trying to place this person in reality. So it turns out we had really mostly spent time together virtually, right? We hadn't seen each other in a long time. Thank you so much for saying hi. It was really fun. I love when the universe brings people together like us. And that person was Anat, clearly. That's why she's here.
Yeah. You're welcome. Well, the wildest part about it is a few days before that, I saw you post on Facebook about your retreat. Like, oh, I'm in San Diego leading my retreat, blah, blah, blah. And then there I was, like, running into you. And we hadn't seen each other in over 10 years since our days of both living in New York City.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
it's
can't
meant
even
to be.
remember the first time that I met you. I remember hanging out with you, but do you remember where we first met? I mean, I was kind of a wild
One of the
child back then.
programs, one of the
Was
programs
it
at Landmark.
Landmark, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay,
No, it was
cool.
definitely Landmark.
Okay.
Yeah, that I remember. That I'm clear on, but
I
I
don't
couldn't
remember
tell
like
you
which one.
which program. Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
love the commitment, of for those of you who don't know, Landmark Education is Landmark Worldwide is a global organization to empower people around personal growth and development. And I've met so many beautiful people in my life. The retreat I lead was a project from there, someone else created. But to get to meet souls who are really out both to take care of themselves and kind of deal with themselves. And I think it's a really beautiful place and space, no matter whenever you're on that journey. And sometimes it could be just walking down the street in New York or San Diego for that matter. You're a transformational coach though, which is, I mean, neither of us were doing this when we first met. And here we are 10 years later, both walking in these circles. I was really inspired by what you do. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe your journey, short or small? We have as much time as we need, but kind of what led you to become a transformational coach and of where you were 10 years ago based on where you are now. And
love that.
Like any like big gulp oh shit moments or lessons you had to learn along the way, like any of that. What's the first thing that pops when I share this with you?
None of that. It was just like
You
easy.
were
Popped
just like
into it.
born in kindergarten and you're like, I'm gonna be a transformational coach when I grow up?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there was always, when I was in high school, my friends always came to me for advice, for my wisdom. I mean, God
Mm.
knows now what I said to them, but whatever it was wise beyond what they could support themselves in. So there was always that relationship of coaching and supporting others. And when it came time to choose a degree, what I wanted to study in college, part of me wanted psychology, and then a part of me did not want 8 years of schooling. I was never one to enjoy, learning the traditional way. So I went the route of business and finance instead, and personal development found me anyway. It was just
Wait, so you didn't want to go to school, so you went the route of business and finance instead. That to
yeah.
me is like, what?
Well,
That
not that I
takes
didn't
so
want.
much schooling and training, right?
Yeah, 4 years, not 8.
Okay.
So I mean,
Fair enough.
needless to say, my intuition was right. It wasn't
Yeah.
the route for me, the traditional way. I'm
Mm.
definitely more of an experiential learner. So getting into self-development Landmark was my introduction into that about 18 years ago. And I fell in love with it from the very moment of sitting in my Landmark forum, the power of seeing people um, transform in front of your eyes, to see possibility become available to them. And so I just knew that, like, this was my home. This is what I always wanted to do, but I wasn't ready for it. I knew that there was so much for me to uncover within myself. And so I spent the next 8 years in that exploration, working with different mentors, being in different leadership roles, and developing my skill as a leader and a coach. I gained a lot from my younger years in Landmark, uh, but I hit my rock bottom about a little over 10 years ago. Of here I am, I
Mm.
know all this stuff, I'm able to coach others, be a leader, but my life was in shambles. I was in a codependent relationship. I had no self-love. I didn't have courage or direction. I was $40,000 in debt. I was unhappy, living in like survival mode in my nervous system all the time. And my relationship came to an end, and it was um, difficult and the biggest blessing ever, because I just knew I was ready to let go. And so, October of 2012, I booked a one-way ticket to Los Angeles with $2,000 to my name, no job, no car, no home, no plan, and one friend in San Diego. And
Wow.
I just allowed myself to be like, it's time for me to really focus on me, and to step away a bit from coaching and wanting to support others, from giving in that way. I wasn't doing it professionally yet, but I was volunteering in that way. And I just saw where I was martyring myself. And really, for the next 2 years, got myself a stable job at the Chopra Center. So was introduced to the world of meditation, which was new for me. And then got into the world of plant medicine, and then into the world of body mind psychology and somatic healing, and experienced the depth of transformation and the depth of healing that I always desired, and I never quite knew was was possible in those 2 years. So, I always say transformation is not a walk in the park on a beautiful sunny San Diego day. Transformation is a walk through a burning forest, and there's some dragons to slay. So if you are on your healing journey and it is uncomfortable, it is painful, it is messy, you are crying, you are shaking, you are purging, you are feeling all the feels, congratulations. You're on the path to healing. And so that was my experience of like, oh, so it's not just aha moments. It's actually feeling the feelings that we normally don't want to feel, and experiencing the healing through discovering who we really are. And so that was my journey. my real journey to healing, I'd say. And then I spent the next year integrating, which is really where the healing happens. That's the other thing. I'm a healer, I'm a coach, and I do recommend that people do the work and at times make sure that you also pause from doing the work and give yourself time to live life, to integrate, to see, like, have you actually shifted? Because sometimes we get so addicted to, oh, I'm doing the work, that we think like that's where the healing happens. And yeah, it's really the full picture from awareness all the way to integrating it. So yeah, so it was at that point that I felt I had the tools and enough embodiment within myself to start to work and guide others. And so I started training Camp for the Soul about 7.5 years ago. And no website, no social media, no podcasting, just good old word of mouth, meeting people and referrals, and built a multiple six-figure business because I was getting people results. And my work was predominantly retreats. I led over 30 retreats, and a year before COVID, I got into uh, facilitating virtually as well because there was just people couldn't make the retreat, or you're maxed at how many people you can serve in a year for doing retreats. And I'm so glad that I did that because when COVID hit, I was prepared. I was ready to serve more people virtually. And it was also at that point that I started developing other coaches. So my facilitator training. It's been a beautiful growth journey with a lot of challenges at times. I'm coming out of 2022 being probably the most challenging and yet personally expansive year in business for me. So a
Mhm.
lot I could say on that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your journey with us, and I'd love to go back just a little bit in that, and then come back to where you are today. You mentioned this one-way ticket to San Diego.
Yeah.
Where were you at the time, and what was going on that had you just book that one-way
Mm,
trip? I mean,
yeah.
that's usually that's a pretty powerful, bold move, right?
Mhm.
That most people would be terrified to take unless they're in enough pain.
Yeah,
What was
yeah.
going on for you?
Yeah. Well, I'll say I fell in love with California, with San Diego when I was 21. And so this was when I was 32, almost 33. So it had been waiting for me for a while. And I was in this 5-year relationship, living with my boyfriend, and just passionless relationship, no love there, super codependent, and I couldn't let it go. And I got to a point about 2 months before that I was, I guess what you call it, depressed. I mean, every day I'd eat like a half a pint of ice cream. It was tough to get up in the morning and start my day. But, really, I think at the root of it, I was just so disconnected from my truth and my heart, that my inner child, my desires were just being starved, that I was that unhappy. And I still didn't have the courage to leave. But I remember just praying, I talk to God, I talk to my guides a lot, and just praying for some kind of strength, some support. I didn't even know that, like, I would ever leave or wanted to. And my boyfriend came back from an event, and I just sensed something was off, something was different. And 3 days later, my intuition told me to check his backpack. Just heard this, like, check his backpack. And I go in there and I find a note that said, "So lovely to have met you, XOXO Joanna," and her phone number. And I just knew in that moment that he's cheating on me, that he met someone. And I approached him about it, and it took him some time, a few hours, but he admitted it. And I remember when I found the note, I got in the shower and I started to cry, but I said to myself, Anat, but you've always known. Now you're free. Now you can let go.
Mm.
And so I had the conversation with him later that day, and he said, I love you though. I want to be with you. I go, you need to figure this out. And I said, let's take 2 days apart. And in those 2 days, I walked around. I was living in New York City, in Soho, like in the like, oh, everybody wants to live in New York, live in Soho. And I was eating half pint ice cream, not wanting to leave my apartment in bed. And I'm walking through New York City in those 2 days. Um, some friends were supporting me that I stayed with, and just thinking, okay, if I leave this relationship, where am I going? What am I doing? And it just was clear to me, like, I'm done with New York. My job here, there's just nothing here that my heart desires anymore. And the one thing that I knew, that I was certain of in my life, was that I was ready for California, that my heart desired to be there. I didn't know that I would get into coaching. I didn't know anything else. And that was scary more for my parents than it was for me. I was, like you said, it was that painful. I hit my rock bottom. I really felt I have nothing to lose. There is nothing right now that I'm leaving this relationship, that my heart desires. So it's only up from here. And the one step up was like, okay, California, here I come.
That sounds like a pretty bold act of self-love at that time. Like you really finally let yourself free.
Mhm. Yeah.
For anyone who might be in a similar position today, who's listening, they might be in that relationship. Um, what advice might you give someone who might be in a similar position today?
Mm, mm. It's not your fault. It's not who you are. It's what you learned. It's what you learned is possible in your life. And if you learned it, you can unlearn it. So stay tuned to the rest of this episode. So I give you some tips as to how to start to love yourself, how to start to listen to your inner knowing and your heart, and how to tend to what I call your inner child.
Mm, that's beautiful. And as you started to do this, I hear you planted a seed of that very thing that you just shared with us, right? How to start to nurture your inner child. What happened once you moved there? What shifted once you said no more to not being treated the way I deserve? I'm going to try something new. You
Mm-hmm.
went to this place. I've heard of wherever you go, there you are. People trying
Yeah.
to move across the country and then they deal
Yeah.
with the same things. Was there anything
Oh
that
yeah.
you kept dealing with when you moved, and or anything that
Oh yeah.
shifted by
For
giving yourself
sure.
this
Well,
permission?
absolutely. Absolutely. So at first, I was angry, I was bitter, I was resentful, and a part of me wanted to win him back. And then I started to see my codependency, my addiction to needing to find love outside of me, that I didn't know at all how to love myself. And and the root of it, where I learned this from the relationship that I had as a little girl with my dad, where daddy worked. He was a workaholic, and he was hardly around. And you know, the father in your life, your father represents everything that's not you. Dad represents the world. Dad is the role model for your relationship with others. And so what I learned by not having the first love in my life, spending enough time with me, is that love won't always be there for you. And you don't matter. You're invisible. And the way that I coped with that, the way that I survived that, was I learned to please and appease to get dad's time when he was around. And so that relationship with him became my relationship with every single man until I healed this. And so I started to uncover that in the first 6 weeks of being in San Diego. And then
Mm,
I took on 100 days of dating me. And I thought
Yeah.
like, oh, 100 days and I'm gonna be good to go. And it was just the start. It's kind of like giving up alcohol for 100 days, but that's just the vice. That's not, the root of it. But it was good for me. It was the beginning. And then I started to see that same pattern of needing a man in order to feel worthy and putting on a show to win their love, not being able to be myself.
Mm, I think that's great. So, again, well, I guess what was the lesson? Like, how did you get out of that? How did you
Hmm.
shift that narrative? How did you shift
Yeah.
that pattern? Because I think so many of us are trying to like,
Hmm.
if dating, you're only dating you like we're dating. What is this thing? It was something around like we don't really actually meet people until 3 to 6 months to a year after knowing them, because really what we're dating at first are just masks that we're putting on, right?
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
perceptions that we want people to see of us. And then like as we get more comfortable with people, we kind of let them in. We see what our shit,
Yeah.
what's really going on. And then some people are like, I'm in a relationship with somebody else. Hold on a second. What were
Yeah.
those things that you allowed that shifted for you, and how did you start to shift them?
Yeah. So, it was at that point that I started to see how much I had my dad on a pedestal and that I never thought I had any learning that I gained from him that didn't serve me. And so, a lot of unpacking that and grieving that. And then I attracted the next relationship into my life. And a lot of times, relationships are our biggest uh, learning ground. And um, that relationship was with an older man. He was 9 years older than me. He was divorced. He had kids. And I actually wasn't attracted to him that much the first 4 dates we went on. Like, I was like, yeah, yeah, I could take it or leave it. And then on like the fifth date, he happened to have his 10-year-old son with him. And unconsciously, I didn't see it for months later, but there was a shift that day where I was so attracted to him because I saw him in the role of father. And he was the father my little girl never had.
Mm,
And so I was, it was the part of me that unconsciously was choosing him was my little girl looking for that daddy. Mhm. And so, yeah, the first few months you're in that pattern, it's great. And then it starts to show its true self. And then, meaning all my unconscious, all the fears, the like, you don't really love me, or will you be there for me, or, am I invisible to you? Do I matter? Like all the 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 trauma that I had with my dad, all those experiences come come up to the surface in that relationship, and you end up playing that out where I literally played out like he's gonna leave me for someone else because that's what men do. They choose something else over me. So we don't see a lot where we are imprinted with a script by the time we're 7, by what we see, what we hear, what we feel from mainly our caretakers, mom and dad. And then we live the rest of our life until we wake up, playing out that script, casting people to play roles in our movie by literally saying to them the thing that we fear, like repeating those beliefs or acting them out, acting as if I can't trust you, you're going to leave me. And so then you're telling them be, how to play out in your movie. Ever date someone and then you break up and you see them with another person and you're like, how, what the heck? He was never like that with me. Yeah, because she's got him or he's playing a different role.
mm,
And
mhm,
so when we're looking to be in a relationship, you also want to look to be in a role that feels like you can be yourself. Because if you feel what it feels like when someone's casting you to play in their movie, is like you're being hijacked. Something's gonna feel off where you're like, I can't quite be myself with this person. And so it doesn't mean, I also want to say, it doesn't mean that you're with the wrong person if from the get go you don't feel like you could be yourself. But it's just something to inquire and to look at constantly. And also, that healing happens in relationship as well. And so, can you, can both people, and this is what my husband and I have gone through in the 5.5 years we've been together. Um, oh, just lost my. Can you still hear
We're
me?
with you. Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear you. The great.
Okay. Cool.
I'm my ears perked up. I'm ready for this one.
Ah!
Well, this is what my husband and I learned in 5 years. Like,
Yeah. Like,
yes, yes.
can you love each other through the like knowing like my husband said to me for first 2 years, just be yourself, just be vulnerable, just be yourself. Like he could tell that like there was a fear of me fully letting myself be seen.
Mm,
But he loved me through it. He was patient with me. And then when the true self started to speak up is when it triggered some of his stuff and where he started to grow. And we're still in that dance. And so it's not like, oh, you're only going to meet your person when you are fully yourself, or if you can't be yourself, you're with the wrong person. But, you know, with that ex boyfriend, we came together for me to recognize that I brought him in because I was looking for healing in this area. And he led me to my mentor, to Dr. Barry Green, who is no longer with us, but been in the space of body and mind psychology, somatic world for 40 years. And I will forever be grateful for that relationship in my life because it brought me to healing. And as I was dating him and working with my therapist, uh, the more I healed this part, the more I felt my little girl, the sadness, the grieving she had around not having daddy. Um, the more it's like editing the script. The more the script got edited, and that role was no longer there. I was no longer attracted to him. It just faded in that way. It He went his way and I more found who I was meant to
mm,
be.
that's
And the
beautiful.
journey continues as I am
Yeah,
married and still discovering.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you talked about, how we can work through this in relationship. I think some of us think, oh, well, this is just proof that, I'm more of the same, or this is broken, or I need to get out of this relationship when, I used to say, like, I met my partner when I was trying to work on myself and be single, and she was trying to be single. And, uh, I would have liked to have worked through some of the things before I met her, but I think by being with her and with each other that we become each other's greatest teachers, even if it's like
Yeah.
a mirror or a match to gas lead, the leaking gas lead of our character defects, whatever it is, the thing we're working on, like sometimes relationship really brings that out, and that feels safe. But I think that's what I'm hearing you're highlighting, is that's actually the place where we get to do the work together. Like that's the places where we get to, if we actually keep turning and facing it with some healthy structure, that there's some really deep healing and growing can happen in those areas. And you
Yes.
mentioned body and mind, right? Like doing it
Mhm.
safely, professionally, with the right tools and the right awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. And not necessarily doing work as a couple.
Mm. Hmm.
So a lot of times when the challenges show up in relationship, we think it's the relationship and that we need to go work with, we need to do couples therapy or we need to go work with a coach on our relationship. And I want you to see it as like you have a garden and she has a garden. and only you can enter yours and only she can enter hers and tend to the weed there. And then you come together and you in relationship and you create this third entity, this garden. And but the only thing you can bring to it is whatever's in your individual ones. And so yeah, in the relationship this stuff shows up, but the work is actually in the individual. So a lot of times when couples come to me, if what they're struggling with is the relationship, I actually do individual work with them first, because the root of it, 99% of the time, is not the relationship. The relationship brings it up because you're bringing those weeds into this garden. And then you're saying, your wife is saying to you, "Wah, wah, wah," and she's handing you this weed. And you're like, okay, and you trim it. All you could do is trim it. The root of it is in her garden. It's her work to do. And so it's important that we allow ourselves to be in relationship and let the relationship trigger our stuff, but then take time to do individual work. Do enough that we are aware of our garden, that there's enough of a foundation, and how you know you're there is that there's strength in your core. You love yourself. You know how to set boundaries. You know how to take care of your needs. You have that foundation. You know how to connect to yourself and therefore have conscious communication when you connect with another person, aka your partner. Then you can come together and there's still going to be stuff that's going to come up that is really for the relationship to work through. But most of the time, it's for us to tend to our own garden first.
Mm, that's beautiful. Um, I'm reminded of putting the oxygen mask on yourself first, and I
Yes.
love the metaphor of that we can really only bring in stuff from our own garden. So be careful. Taking care of your own garden, being intentional with what you
Hmm.
bring in, and
Hmm.
also the other thing I heard that I loved was like be like not everything that's handed to you belong is yours. Like sometimes it's other people's shit. So don't try to grow flowers out of someone else's
Yeah.
shit. Like you don't have to take it
Yeah.
just because they're handing it to you. I
And
was
that's
thinking about
where
that with
the
the weeds.
more,
Like, here are
yeah.
my
And
weeds. Like
that's,
you don't have to take them. Just be like, that's
yeah.
great. I'm not gonna take those. I've got my own to deal with.
Yeah. And that's why the more you know yourself, the more you know this is a projection. This isn't mine. This is not my circus, not my monkeys. And you are able to set that boundary and just stand solid in this is not mine. And it's going to be uncomfortable to
Mm,
challenge our partners in those moments and to stand in that. But that's when a relationship is strong enough that it could grow. That's when there's roots that it could grow on. The roots is really our own foundation. So if you want to grow a healthy relationship, you have to strengthen your own roots first so that the things that, you and I are both married, that life is going to challenge us with as a married couple, as you have kids, as you go through career changes or, losses, things like that, is making sure that individually we all are rooted in our own individual being.
mm, sad. And what are what are some of the like? What's the hardest thing you think you and your husband have been through since you met? And how did you make your way out of it?
Mm. Whew. I don't know that we fully have yet. I'm really honest,
Mm,
you know? The biggest thing would probably be there's so much love and playfulness and uh, intimacy between us. But I'd say our sex life. and our desire and how we connect in that way is still something that we're working through. And um, the part that I'd say we're still working through is the like how much of what is not in the bedroom, what is not happening in when you're naked is has to be solid first for that. That's not actually,
Mm.
that it's something else, and that we all have different layers of it. Like, we, meaning my husband and I, have different layers over the years. For me, it was like finding my voice and feeling safe to be fully seen in my body and therefore safe with him. For him, it's learning to regulate his nervous system, where he can actually occupy his body because he's a genius, brilliant, creative, that always has so much energy for creativity and knowledge and ideas. And so um, the strengths that we both have in that, and like how to come together in like sacred union, is still our journey. But our love and patience for each other in this is so strong, um, that yeah, that we're still together, we're still in it. But that's my like no, nothing to hide, no bullshit answer.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I actually can resonate with that, and that's something my wife and I have also continued to practice. Especially when you're creative and you're working on your own projects, remembering to be creative with your own sexuality and expression, and the time you nurture your own relationship. It's a great reminder, whether you're married or not, and also the reminder to do that work with yourself. Right. So one of the
Mhm.
things you've developed some mastery around is this somatic healing space, and that really really excites me. I think so many of us get very internal and in our heads around the healing world, and we're reading books and we're listening and we're not sure, but we're ignoring this other incredible part of ourselves, which is our body, our heart, our other nervous systems, all the energy places. What are some of the tools you've learned that you still practice and or teach today that you found really work, or you're really passionate about, that you could share with us today?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. My work, the pillars of my work are safety, connection, nervous system regulation, and inner child reparenting. And, all of that is the world of not only somatics, but, the connection between the mind and the body, working cohesively together. Um, so I don't want to discount the mind, but a lot of us have mindset training or are so comfortable living there, that we haven't tapped into the wisdom of the body. And the foundational tools, I'd say, is first learning how to occupy the body safely. And so some of you listening, if I say to you right now to close your eyes and sit up straight and, have your body relaxed on your chair or your couch or laying down, and take a few deep breaths. Deep, what I mean by like deep into the belly. And so usually you want to start with an exhale, blowing all the air out, sucking your belly button in. So your first inhale is deep into your belly and your diaphragm, filling it up, feeling the expansion up your spine to your ribs, to your back, holding at the top and letting go, taking a few of those breaths. And then if I ask you to scan your body for any sensation that's there, whether it's in your toes or up your legs or in your stomach or your chest, if there's any warmth or tingling or anywhere where you feel stuckness. Some of you may be able to do that. And so the practice of feeling safe enough to get there is the breath is saying, I'm safe to be in my body. I'm safe to feel this. Where do I feel safe in my body? And then some of you, just the idea of dropping into your body, taking those breaths, um, freezes you or numbs you, where you're just like, I don't know. I'm looking for it. I'm thinking about it. So then the place to start is really to awaken our senses a bit. And what that looks like is start with one side of your body and just tap or massage it for about 30 seconds, tapping and massaging,
Love
maybe
tapping.
scratching,
And
and
that's
then
been around
pause.
for like thousands of years, right? That's even part of
Yeah,
Tai Chi and,
yeah, yeah,
even
yeah,
acting classes. We do this in acting class too. Like these are,
yeah,
and yet this is
exactly.
such a beautiful, free, always available technique.
Yeah. So, but start with one side and then take a
Okay.
pause and just feel what has awakened there. Like, oh, it feels
Mm,
warm, a little cool, a little tingly. And then do it on the other side. And then notice if there's a difference. Like, oh, I'm starting to notice my right side is actually more online than my left. And then do your legs as well. And so, what you're doing there is you're intentionally waking up sensations in the body. So, you're activating, let me get out of my head a bit because now I am more uh, awakened to my body. Just like when we cut ourselves. I cut
yeah.
myself the other day in the kitchen. Not major, but now it's like, "Oh, I feel that. I feel that."
Become
There's
hyper
parts of
aware.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's parts of us that we haven't felt safe to feel. And so
Mm,
starting with, okay, let me just wake up other parts that could feel ushy gushy, yummy to occupy so that I'm at least dropping into my body is a good beginner practice for those that it's scary to feel into the anxiety or the fear or the grief. So that's like a start. And then from there, you can do what I call priming safety. So you sit straight, palms up. So you're signaling that you're safe with your body language. And you repeat, I'm safe, safe to be in my body, safe to feel this, safe to experience this. And you identify the ushy gushy parts that you could always go to. Like, hey, what feels really warm and like a safe spot in my body? Okay, I could always take a break from the intensity of, let's say, the anxiety that is in my chest, and I can tune in to the warmth of my butt against on the cushion, like the comfort of leaning against something. And then you can work your way towards the part where you're holding the tension, the sensation, the emotion. So, Ben, if you say to me right now, if I ask you, what are you sensing? What are you experiencing? Is there anything triggering you at the moment? Or if someone comes to you or says like, I'm afraid, or I'm angry, or I'm scared, I'm anxious, I would say take a moment, drop into your body. Where in your body do you feel that? Where are you holding that part, that energy? And then focusing on it. Oh, you're muted.
I was
Did you say?
muted. I was really with you though. Um, it was interesting. I felt like tingling in my back at the beginning, and then when you asked me the place where I felt like discomfort, I felt sudden a pain in my back. I was like, "Oh, my
Mhm.
back's really talking to me."
Yeah.
Um, And then when I go
Yeah,
into the place of usually having anxiety or fear, I'm about to launch Dude School, this big program for men,
amazing.
and then my belly's like, oh, like it's, and I used to hide from that. Now I'm like, oh, that means I really care about this. There's some energy there. I don't have to make it bad. Like, what if I could get
Yeah,
curious about it? So you help remind me to do that.
exactly, exactly. What we want to eliminate is the good emotions, bad emotions, like happy, horny. Yes, more of that. Scared, angry. How do I fix this? How do I make this stop? Or why do I feel this way? So imagine, I'm going to give you all a metaphor here to work with. And this is what I call, your inner child. Your inner child is your emotions, is your sensations, is your beliefs, your I am statements. And so when you feel, whether it's great, like joy, or I'm anxious about, or I'm nervous about launching this program, I want you to imagine your younger self, your 5-year-old self, walking into your bedroom while you're sitting there on the bed, tugging on you. And this little one is the part of you that is saying these things, that is feeling these things, says to you, I'm scared, I'm nervous about launching this program. And imagine how we have, unfortunately, society and our upbringing has programmed us to deal with our emotions. If you said, why? Why? Or let me fix you. Or for those of you that avoid and stuff down your feelings, like, oh, you're fine. Go away. I'm busy. Or here, just have ice cream. For those of you that have kids, telling you, we have a lot to learn. They will model this. What happens if you don't let them have their tantrum? Oh, they're going to have a bigger one later. What happens if you don't listen to them when they're in the back seat? They're just going to get louder. But when you do, they did a Harvard study on this. You can move through emotions in 90 seconds. It's not to say, for example, that you're going to move through grief in 90 seconds, but that they come in 90-second waves. And so the key is to learn to ride the waves of our emotions. And so, what you want to do, if that little one came in the room and said, I'm scared, is probably pick up that child, right? Give yourself that physical touch and caress. Hold yourself and say, it's okay. I'm here. Tell me more. Well, what if I don't feel it? What if they don't? And just let all the things that are tied to that part that are creating that experience be expressed. And then validate that little one's experience. Yeah. Yeah. You're scared that you may not fill the program, or that people won't like it, or that they'll drop out, or that it won't be fulfilled, or that it's going to take off and then you're actually going to have to be successful. Yeah, all those things. You start to listen to yourself instead of trying to fix yourself. You start to give yourself the love, the presence, and the compassion. So that's what it looks like to talk to the inner child and to hold the inner child. Now, bringing this back to the somatics of feeling the energy. So if you feel the sensation in your chest, or where do you feel it, Ben, when that comes up for you? Like if you tune in right now and you just repeat to yourself
I feel it like
whatever that
right here, like right in my
in
you
your
can't see where I'm pointing, but like in
in
my
your
solar
solar plex?
plexus. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. And if you were to get away from the label, so we automatically label like, oh, I'm anxious or I'm scared, and how do I fix this? And we go one layer below the label of the emotion into the sensation of it. Describe the sensation. Does it have a size?
Yeah, it's like it feels like a
Is,
small ball of energy that's just kind of pulsating, like ready
okay,
to
perfect.
fire.
Yeah, so it's the size of a lemon, Size and form?
No, it's like the size of like smaller than a cantaloupe, but like bigger than a grapefruit. Somewhere
Okay,
between those two.
perfect. Perfect. Okay, great. Be with that.
Yeah.
And you said fire, so the temperature?
Yeah,
What's the
there's
temperature?
definitely oh, that's interesting. Well, my body feels hot, but there's a really big heater behind me in my office right now. But like there's also sort of a cold feeling inside of it too. There's
Yeah,
like
so it's cold. Does it have
yeah.
a texture to
It's
it?
cold and electric.
Okay, electric.
Uh
Yeah,
the texture is smooth
yeah,
and kind of fiery and wiry.
yeah. So I
There's sort of a
sense that it's
water sense around it,
mhm,
like it's like a globe and a ball,
moving.
but it reminds me, those science balls in the 80s or 90s. Touch this thing,
Uh-huh.
the electricity goes to your hand. It's like one of those, but there of it's like this
Yeah,
almost like liquid and smooth, but it has the potential to like shoot this electricity out.
perfect. Great. So now I want you to laser beam focus as if you are in surgery on this part, right?
Mhm.
So laser focus on it. Nothing to change, nothing to fix. Just bring curiosity to the energy. Bring love and compassion and presence and curiosity to it. Nothing to change or fix. Just keep observing it. See if it changes shape or form or energy in any which way. And just keep being with it from this loving, compassionate, curious presence. And it may bring up some, um, it may start talking to you, it may say things.
Hmm.
And if it says anything to you, you can express it, whether it's words or it's emoting something.
Well, it got warm and kind of melted and sort of
Yeah,
spread into my heart and sort of into my creeping into the rest of my body and chest now. And it's just letting me know I'm enough. And this is actually my power and part of my like internal, that thing that like keeps me going. Like it's part of my internal fire that I've got to, like that gets lit when you wake up in the morning, right? That thing
yeah,
inside of you that keeps us going. It's actually like a
yeah.
really
Mm,
it's like a really old precious light. I feel like it's been inside of me for a while that I don't let myself tap into regularly.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
actually, yeah, it's really powerful. It feels like sort of my core. Like I imagine if the earth has a little core, like the tiniest part of that is some part of this.
Hmm.
And it's kind of
Yeah.
nice
So there
too.
you
It
go.
like feels kind of powerful as well.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Mm.
So what's possible and available now that wasn't before
That's a great question.
with this part? And
Being
see if
more
you could
present
answer
with
it
my
more.
body.
Yeah.
Yeah, not from my head.
Yeah. And more specifically, so you went into it with like there was some anxiety or some like, oh, like taking this big step, like some maybe some fear that was there. How would you have labeled it before?
Kind of
How were
anxious
you? Yeah,
energy,
I have this anxious
like
energy.
nervous,
Yeah, I'm nervous and
wiry.
anxious,
Yeah.
wiry. Yeah. To now what became possible as you allowed yourself to get away from the labels and the judgment of this is nervous, wiry, anxious energy to learning to be with it from a loving, compassionate place. What did you
Mhm.
discover about this
That was
part?
a source of power, and that's something I
Yeah,
can just listen to
this is
and
my
be with, and
passion.
maybe I need to listen to it a little bit more. Yeah, it's actually the
Yeah,
thing that drives me.
yeah, this is my passion power right here.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And all
This
at once.
reminds me Yeah, this reminds me of when I'd first gotten sober. Quit drinking, and this was 2012. That's why I was interested at the time. And this was September of
Oh,
2012, right? You
you and
said
me,
October
brother. Same. It
2012?
was,
Yeah.
but it was September 15th that I ended that relationship and took
Oh
that
my
route.
God.
So
And I stopped drinking September 12th of that
yeah.
time.
So
That's
September
wild.
12th was the day that I found the note. So you and
That's
I.
crazy. Yeah. I found my own note to myself.
Oh
Like,
my
that
god.
wow. So they, I was dating a woman at the time, and at some point I started waking up with like crazy anxiety, and she said, what if you like or just wake up with energy now? Like now that you're not like drinking yourself to sleep or smoking yourself, like maybe you just have energy and this is what your body does when it has some. So go run, like go do something. And that was it. It
Yeah.
just needed a place to go. And and it reminds me of this, like when I just experienced it and was at the effect of, it was like, oh, there's something wrong with me. I've got to fix this. And I started smiling and laughing when you talked about your husband learning to regulate his nervous system. Definitely been on that journey. But I was an athlete and an actor, so I've been aware of my body for a long time, but there's new things that surprise me. So what came up for me is like, oh yeah, I need having like compassion and get curious and see what I can do with this. A lot of the time it's energy I need to use. Like I need to go run. That sometimes when I'm in fight or flight, like actually going towards that flight can help me. And then I come back feeling like totally safe and comfortable and inspired, like a different human. Right. And it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the brain firing and sometimes needing to connect to our bodies. Right. And
Mhm.
and at that time with that girlfriend and in that experience, it was like a feeling at the effect of, and it wasn't really getting curious like how I could use it. And that shifted. And so I noticed that today just in this exercise.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Um
Yeah.
and it
So
felt so
that's your inner
simple and
child.
lovely. So I really appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, totally. So
And I
those are
hope
ways that we
everyone
can connect.
listening, if you didn't do it with us, like maybe just rewind about 10 minutes. I'm actually putting the timestamps in the notes so that you can go back through the different points and see what you liked. And I encourage you to practice this and also to share this with Anat and let her know. And if you share it with me, I'll share it with her. Let us know like what was different for you. What have you noticed? Comment here, people who could use it.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
really love this, and I assume this is a taste of some of the work you do on a professional
it is.
level.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. It's the foundation of it. That's definitely part of it, and then there's deeper exploration into, sometimes people come with like a belief that they think is really them. And I say, whose energy is this? Like, who did you learn this from? This isn't you. This is
Mm,
mom or this is dad. And then we explore how to unlearn that and reparent and give ourselves uh, access to who we really are, like editing the script,
yeah,
becoming the editor. So
yeah,
yeah, that's a taste. It's a good place for people to start on their own and
beautiful.
explore. And
And
for those,
this is really exciting. I sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you about to say?
no,
For
I was going to
those,
say for those of you that may find it challenging, be kind and patient with yourself. If you've lived in your head or completely dissociated most of your life, um, uh, connecting with your inner child may take some time. It's like locking a child up in a closet for 20, 30 years, and then you open the door. That child isn't necessarily going to run into your arms and hug you and sit on your lap and tell you everything. It's going to like
yeah,
literally like put the toe out the door and be like, "But are you?" It takes time to rebuild that trust with ourselves, with our body, with our nervous system. So be kind and patient with yourselves.
I love that, and I really appreciate the inner child recognition. And I just also had a vision. I've worked with animals a lot of an animal, that they, if you want to make them vicious and less trusting, you like lock them away in a dark room, right? And then if you've rescued anything, most of the time you can tell if an
Mhm.
animal's a rescue by how crazy its nervous system is, right? Like its ability to
Yeah.
re-regulate itself, its ability to
Mhm.
trust things that are foreign or different. And every like I have I'm great with pets, but like my friend's cat still, and he's like, I don't get it. It tries to attack me every time I'm there. And I'm saying, well, its nervous system is just having a response, like feels jealous. It's not used to sharing space with someone else, right? There, who knows what's going on, but either way, what we can let it know is that, like, keep doing the things that let it know it's safe when I'm around, right? So I'll like
Yeah,
feed it, or when we do like positive reinforcement, like when
exactly.
we have a good interaction, and then really ignore it the rest of the time, like practicing those boundaries of not like, please, please, please love me, like learning to those, like those new, I've always found cats have taught me a lot of good things about boundaries, because I was always a dog person and I didn't have boundaries, so I've learned a lot.
Yeah, dogs will teach you
um
unconditional love, cats will teach you boundaries.
yeah, that's great. That's great. So for people who are kind of new to this work, and they might want to, dip their toes in or take a peek out of the closet with you, where might they look? What would be the first place to start to work?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, trainingcampforthesoul.com. I have a free guided meditation on there. I also going to be offering monthly free workshops, so there'll be a pop-up where you can sign up for that. And if you want to connect with me, I love to connect with people. Follow me on Instagram at anat.perry, and I send a DM to every new follower because I want to know, like, why are you following me? Who are you, and how we can support each other. So feel free to connect with me there, and then to learn more about my work and get a taste of it, trainingcampforthesoul.com.
Awesome. Beautiful. I've got both those links now in the comments as well. So if you didn't get that, you can just click there and contact her directly. And anyone who's interested, or if I receive anything, I'll send them your way too. And for us who are facilitators and coaches and space holders already, I know you've got some projects that really interested me. What programs where would we start with
Mm.
you?
Well, I have my facilitator training. It's kicking off in a few days. So I imagine
Amazing.
before this podcast will be put out, kicking off February 1st. Um,
Yep,
oh,
it might
yeah,
be
I
just
guess 2
before
days.
that. Yeah, that's really soon. Yeah, this will probably release next week. But
But
either way,
it's
tell us, because
it's okay.
there's many of us who may
Yeah.
wanna get in on the next one.
Exactly. There'll be a next one in the fall for sure. Again, you could always send me a message, tell me, hey, I want to learn more about your work and how I can get trained by you. And I'm more than happy to hop on a call and talk about it. So
Is there
trust
any
all in divine
information online
timing.
about that, or should we just,
Yes.
book a
Yep.
call, reach out to you?
Yeah, that's on the website as well. It's under programs. It's called Mastery. That's my facilitator training. 6 month
Mass 3?
mastery. Yeah.
Mastery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's
All the
say
details are
programs
on there.
mastery.
And I have
Alright,
a
awesome.
retreat. I have my virtual program for those that are just looking to be supported, hands on.
Alright, cool. I'm excited about that. I'm gonna check those out too, and you inspired me to do more retreats as well, as I was, like, in Costa Rica thinking, "Why aren't we just bringing more people out here?" All these beautiful places, and to
Oh
each
God,
other's
yeah.
land, and we're setting up our house here in Rhinebev, more people in the Hudson Valley too. So if you're ever here, Annette, you always have a place to stay. It's
Oh,
really
thank
amazing to connect
you.
with you and your
You
partner, of
too.
course. I have a few closing questions if you have a couple more
Sure.
minutes. Awesome.
Absolutely.
So I ask all my guests these questions. The first one is, what is your self-care routine like today, ideally, if you're on track?
Yeah. I'm back on track.
Oh, good.
New Year. Going to bed at the same time every night around like my body starts to unwind around like 10:45, 11 o'clock, so that I am waking up the same time. I drink my lemon water. I do some kind of movement in the morning. I am more fluid with it. So I listen to what my body wants that morning. Does it want to walk? Does it want a meditation? Does it want yoga? Does it want Pilates? It's usually one of those, or it just wants to dance and rage with some music. And yeah, and just connecting with myself, my inner child. Sometimes she's happy and joyful and ready and inspired to play and create, and sometimes she needs to feel a lot of feels. And just sitting and tending to her. So making sure that the first at least hour of my day is dedicated to my well-being, to filling up my cup so that I could serve others in the most delighted way.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. It's always nice to hear what we're practicing with ourselves and a reminder like that we need this too. You talked about that at the beginning, us having space for ourselves and our own healing.
Hmm.
So the next question is, if your life were a Hollywood film up and
Hmm.
now, what would be the title?
Mm, the ripple effect when you choose you.
Ooh, nice. And if your husband titled the movie, what do you think he might call it?
Oh man. Um that's hilarious. I actually will need to ask him that later. What he title it. Uh he would title it Crazy Kooky Mona, which is how you say monkey in Spanish when you say it about like yeah, we just a nickname we have of each other, Mona and Mona. He
That's
probably
adorable.
yeah.
That's adorable. Oh my gosh, I love
But I'm
that.
really curious. I actually will have to ask him that
Yeah,
and see what he
that's great.
comes up
Yeah,
with.
yeah. You definitely let us know what he says. And if you could cast anyone in Hollywood as your parents, who would you cast as your parents in this film?
Mm, yeah. He'd be better at answering this because he loves
Who
movie
loves that stuff?
cinematography, all
Well,
that.
you could
I'm
create
just like,
anyone. People have even used like animators or their own parents. Just anyone who would into mind.
what actor would play the role of
Mother
my parents, my
or
mother?
father or some
Um,
facet of their personality, right?
or the personality I want?
Yeah, exactly. Some people are like, well, my parents, so I'm gonna take these
Um,
amazing humans instead.
yeah, um, I'd say Mary Poppins. I forget would be my
Amazing.
mother.
Yeah.
And my dad would be I'm so not good with movies or actors, but, nothing's coming to mind.
Okay. The Nutty Professor came to my mind, but I've never met your father. I don't know why that popped into my head, but
Um, what's the wizard one? Be some kind of
The Wizard
wizard.
of Oz,
No, no, like
like
from, like, the Marvel
Merlin
movies,
or Lord
like
of the
the Marvel
Rings, like
uh, yeah, or like Yoda. Yeah, just like a
nice.
wise old
Yoda, Mary Poppins,
mixed with a little bit of, like,
Dumbledore,
just a fun, wild dad, like a Mark Wahlberg, if you've seen him in characters where he plays a
Yoda
father.
meets Mark Wahlberg and Mary Poppins. I gotta see this movie. That sounds amazing. Where do I sign up? That's great. Well,
Sounds fun.
let's see. The last thing I have for you is if you could give the world one gift today, you could just wave your magic wand and give us all a gift. What gift? Might you give us?
Mm, the gift of self-love, of learning to love all parts of you exactly as you are, because you are a magnificent puzzle. Ever buy a puzzle? Those are the pieces. You can't change them to make them fit. You can't edit them. And we've been trying to do that with ourselves instead of loving the puzzle that we are. Every piece, every part belongs. The ones that are, challenging and painful times, and the ones that are brilliant and, um, you know, beautiful. So,
Love
yeah,
that.
give
Love
it to
all of the
yourself.
pieces of the puzzle that you are. Of the awesome puzzle, what do you say? A great, cool puzzle? Something, the metaphor
Yeah,
was
just
great. I mean,
just the
the
puzzle of
adjective.
you, like, yeah, that you are a magnificent puzzle
Awesome.
and can't change the parts. Love the parts, bring them into wholeness by doing, the somatic work, which really is bringing the wisdom of the mind, the body, the spirit all back together as one. So go complete that puzzle, hang it up and
Mm.
celebrate it.
And if you
Yeah.
see us all having that compassion and all having that
Mm.
love of all our pieces of our puzzle, what do you see doing?
Heaven on earth. Just um playfulness, just
Mm.
like the Garden of Eden, really the playfulness, the joy, the innovation, the creativity, the abundance. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. You just inspired me. I think I'm gonna go like 5-minute dance party with my wife
Yay!
and
I love
play
that.
some
Go
more
play.
today. I've been in
Yeah,
such a
more
serious
play.
space. This is great. So,
Yeah, again, tuning into the
it's
inner
such a
child.
joy.
Sometimes he needs to
Yes.
be held because he's crying and, or anxious. And sometimes he's just like, can we just go have some fun and
Yeah.
play?
Fucking
More play, guys. We all need more healthy play.
yes.
And I just want to say this one last part in connection to that.
Please.
Don't use play to override. Like if I think about a child, when a child's upset and you're like, come on, let's go play. Usually they don't want to. They need to just feel through it. So feel through it, 90 seconds, just like you did. And then there's access to it. If you ever let a
Mm,
child that's upset fully feel their upset, 90 seconds later, they are running out the door playing and they forgot about their upset.
that's
So
so true.
tend to yourself and then go have some fun and play.
I wanna say something that like, perfect example of that, because as I've gotten deeper in this work, there was a moment when I was having a really sad day and I was crying and my wife was we had sort of reversed roles. She was wanting to be the fixer in that moment, and I said, "I just like, if you could just hold me while I cry, then there's nothing you need to solve or fix, and I'll be done, like, in 12 minutes." Like, I just like,
Yeah.
literally, there's no drama. I just literally need someone to hold space for me while I, like,
Mhm.
emote, and then I'll be like totally
Beautiful.
good. And so we've
Beautiful. We need
started
more of that.
practicing sharing like that for each other. She's crying. I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, sometimes I need like learning how to let her go cry without me comforting her was really painful and unfamiliar for me at the beginning of our relationship. But now I've learned how much of a gift that is to give each other that
Yes.
space we need, because we all need to co-regulate or sorry, we all need to regulate our own systems in different ways.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a
So
I
I
have a I
really
have
got a message of you like teaching us to do that today, reminding us to check in with ourselves first. And that's a
yeah.
great gift we can give relationships.
I call it because it's actually in one of the tools I teach. It's called holding the bucket. So, when
Mm.
someone needs to throw up, like, you don't wanna witness it. There's not
Yeah.
much you could do but rub their back and hold their
Just
hair
trying to make sure
or
they
hold
go in the right
they don't
direction.
fall,
Yeah.
right? So it's the same thing. So what you're
Oh, that's
referring to
great.
with your wife
I
is what
love
I call
that.
like, "Hey, can you hold the bucket for me?" So your whole job is just to hold and to let her just keep dumping out whatever she's
Yeah.
feeling and just keep saying anything else, anything else, anything else
Mm,
until she's like, "Okay, I'm good."
that's
So, yeah,
great.
hold
And
the
can we
bucket.
do that for ourselves too? Like you really
Yes,
pointed to that
we need to.
today.
Yeah.
right?
Hold
Thank you for
ourselves.
that
Mhm.
gift. That's such a wonderful there's so much here today. So if you came in late or you're just listening or, you tuned in and out, like that's totally cool. Just go back, send us a message, let us know what landed. Please reach out to Anat. I'm going to be following her programs and perhaps doing this facilitator training in the future too. And yeah, if no one told you today, I love you. You're enough. Thank you for listening. Thank you for
Mhm.
being here. And Annette, thank you for sharing your time with us so generously and all the
Thank you.
tools and your truth. My God, it helped me a lot. So I hope
Mm.
someone else too.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on this journey with me.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Well, have a beautiful day and look out for this episode live if you're watching. Please subscribe. And again, every time you interact with this, you let us know, you comment, you share. It really helps share this medicine with the world, right? So thank you for sharing it. And Annette, thank you for being here.
Thank you.